Dr. Vada Estrada believed in precision. In the operating room at Seattle Presbyterian Hospital, where she worked as one of the youngest cardiothoracic surgeons in the Pacific Northwest, precision meant the difference between life and death. A millimeter too far left during a coronary bypass, a second too long applying the clamp. These weren't abstract concepts. They were the razor's edge between saving someone's father and destroying a family. Vada had built her career on precision, on careful planning, on never making a move without understanding all the variables, which made what she was about to discover even more devastating, because she'd missed every single warning sign. It was June 12, 2024, and Vada was sitting in her mother's hospital room at Houston Methodist, watching Adeline Sloan. The woman who'd raised her, sacrificed everything for her education, worked 3 jobs to put her through medical school, died by inches from pancreatic cancer. Vada was 37 years old, at the peak of her career, making $380,000 annually, performing some of the most complex cardiac surgeries in the region. She'd been with Seattle Presbyterian for 6 years, had published research in major medical journals, was being considered for department head. Her life was exactly where she'd planned for it to be. Except her mother was dying, and all the precision in the world couldn't fix that. Adeline had been diagnosed in January 2024, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, metastasized to her liver. The oncologist gave her 4 to 6 months. Vada had immediately requested a sabbatical from the hospital, something they'd granted given her exemplary record. 6 months of unpaid leave to care for her mother in Houston. Phoenix Aguirre, her husband of 8 years, had been supportive, or so she'd thought. Phoenix was 39, a vice principal at Roosevelt High School in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, making $87,000 a year. They'd met at a charity fundraiser in 2014. Vada had been there representing the hospital, Phoenix representing the school district. He'd made her laugh, which was rare for Vada. She took life seriously, always had. Phoenix had this lightness about him, this ability to find joy in small moments. They'd married in 2016 in a small ceremony in the San Juan Islands. It had been perfect, intimate, meaningful, exactly what Vada wanted. They'd bought a beautiful craftsman-style house in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood, spent weekends hiking in the Cascades, talked about having kids once Vada made department head. Their life had been good, solid, built on mutual respect and partnership. Or so Vada had believed. When she'd left for Houston in February, Phoenix had driven her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, promised to visit every month. "Your mom needs you," he'd said. "I've got everything handled here. Don't worry about the house. Don't worry about bills. Just focus on Adeline." The first month had been brutal. Adeline had been strong at first, determined to fight. But pancreatic cancer doesn't negotiate. By March, she was weaker. By April, she was on hospice care. Vada had converted her childhood bedroom into a medical suite, hired round-the-clock nursing care, and essentially become her mother's primary physician. Phoenix had visited in March, stayed for a weekend. He'd seemed distracted, always on his phone, but Vada had attributed it to work stress. Budget cuts at the school district, teacher conflicts, the usual administrative headaches. He'd kissed her goodbye, promised to come back in April. But April came and went with excuses. "The district is doing layoffs. I can't leave right now. We have standardized testing. I need to be here for the teachers." Budget meetings with the superintendent. Vada had understood. Or tried to. She was exhausted anyway, between caring for her mother, managing pain medications, coordinating with hospice, and dealing with her own grief. She didn't have energy to question Phoenix's absence. By May, Adeline had declined rapidly. She was sleeping 20 hours a day, eating almost nothing, her body shutting down system by system. The hospice nurse, a kind woman named Kaia Alfaro, told Vada it would be soon. Days, maybe a week. Vada called Phoenix. "She's dying. You should come say goodbye." "I'll be there this weekend," Phoenix promised. "I'm so sorry, V. I know this is hard." But he didn't come that weekend. Or the next. He called with more excuses. Emergency at school, couldn't get a flight, would definitely be there by month's end. Adeline died on June 10, 2024, at 3:47 a.m. Vada was holding her hand, watching the monitors flatline, feeling the exact moment her mother's heart stopped. It was the worst moment of Vada's life. Not because of the medical reality of death, which she understood intellectually, but because of the crushing loneliness of being the only person there. Phoenix didn't answer when she called. She tried 3 more times that morning. Voicemail. She texted, "Mom passed. I need you." Nothing. 6 hours later, he finally called back. "Oh my God, V, I'm so sorry. I was in meetings all morning, my phone was off. Are you okay?" "No," Vada said, her voice hollow from crying. "I'm not okay. My mother just died, and I've been trying to reach you for 6 hours." "I'm sorry," Phoenix said, and he sounded genuinely remorseful. "This is terrible timing, but the school just announced more layoffs. I'm fighting to keep my position. Can you handle the arrangements? I'll fly down as soon as I can, I promise." Vada had been too numb to fight. "Fine. Just get here when you can." She'd spent the next 2 days making arrangements: funeral home, cremation, memorial service. Her mother had wanted something small, just close friends from the church she'd attended. Vada organized it all on autopilot, functioning but not feeling. Phoenix finally answered her calls on day 3. "Babe, I have terrible news. The superintendent just told me if I leave before the end of term, I'm losing my job. We can't afford that. I'm so sorry. Can you do the service without me? I'll make it up to you, I swear." Something about his voice felt off. Too smooth. Too practiced. But Vada was drowning in grief and couldn't process suspicion. "Fine," she said. "I'll handle it." The memorial service was on June 15th. 20 people came. Church friends, neighbors, a few of Adeline's former co-workers. Vada gave a eulogy about her mother's strength, her sacrifice, her unwavering support. She didn't mention that her husband couldn't be bothered to show up. After the service, after everyone left, Vada sat in her mother's empty house and made a decision. She was done in Houston. There was nothing left here except grief and memories. She wanted to go home to Seattle, to Phoenix, to grieve in her own space with her own husband. She booked a flight for the next day. She didn't tell Phoenix she was coming. Partly because she wanted to surprise him, partly because she was angry he hadn't come to the funeral, and some petty part of her wanted him to feel guilty when she showed up unexpectedly. Vada arrived at SeaTac Airport at 2:30 p.m. on June 16th. She took a lift home, exhausted from the flight and the emotion of the past week. The driver pulled up to her house on Queen, and at 3:15 p.m. The first thing Vada noticed was that the front door was painted. It had been forest green when she left. Now it was pale blue. That's odd, she thought. But maybe Phoenix had decided to refresh things while she was gone. That would be thoughtful, actually. She used her key to open the door and stepped into her house. Except it wasn't her house. The furniture was different. Completely different. Their brown leather couch was gone, replaced by a cream-colored sectional Vada had never seen before. The coffee table, the vintage piece they'd found at an estate sale in Ballard, was gone, replaced by a modern glass and chrome monstrosity. The artwork on the walls was different. The rug was different. Even the curtains were different. Vada stood frozen in the entryway, her suitcase still in her hand, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "Did Phoenix redecorate?" she said aloud, her voice echoing in the space. But no, this wasn't redecorating. This was a complete transformation. This looked like a different person lived here. Vada walked through the living room into the kitchen. Different dishes in the cabinets. Different food in the refrigerator. A coffee maker she'd never seen before sitting on the counter. Magnets on the fridge that weren't theirs, including one that said Phoenix and Kaia with a heart. Vada's blood went cold. She walked upstairs to the bedroom. The master bedroom. Her bedroom. The bed was different, king-sized instead of their queen. The bedding was different, modern geometric patterns instead of the simple navy set they'd had. And in the closet, hanging where Vada's clothes should have been, were women's clothes that absolutely were not hers. Younger styles. Trendy brands. Nothing Vada would ever wear. On the nightstand was a framed photo. Phoenix, smiling, with his arm around a young woman Vada didn't recognize. She was maybe mid-20s, pretty, with long dark hair and a bright smile. They looked happy. They looked like a couple. Vada picked up the photo with shaking hands and stared at it, her surgeon's brain trying to process information that didn't make medical or logical sense. Her husband had moved another woman into their home, into their bedroom, had replaced Vada's entire existence with someone else, while she was burying her mother. If you think you know where this story is going, think again. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what Dr. Vada Estrada does next will show you why you should never, ever underestimate a woman who operates on human hearts for a living. This isn't just revenge. This is surgical precision applied to betrayal. Veda stood in the bedroom, her bedroom that was no longer hers, holding the photo and feeling her grief transform into something colder, sharper, more focused. She was a surgeon. She didn't panic. She gathered information, analyzed data, and made calculated decisions. She walked through the house methodically, documenting everything with her phone. Photos of the new furniture, the new decor, the clothes in the closet, the Phoenix and Kaia magnet on the fridge, the framed photos throughout the house showing Phoenix with this woman, Kaia, living a life that looked exactly like the one he'd had with Veda, just with a younger model. In the home office, which had been Veda's space for reviewing medical journals and research, she found bills. Utility bills still in Veda's name, but with usage patterns that showed someone had been living here continuously. Credit card statements showing purchases at furniture stores, home decor shops, restaurants. Phoenix had been living here with another woman, spending their money, erasing Veda's existence. The home phone rang. Veda answered without thinking. "Babe." A young woman's voice. "I'm leaving work early. Traffic is terrible on 99, so I'll probably be home around 6. Want me to grab Ty from that place in Fremont?" Veda's voice was ice. "Who is this?" Silence. Then, panicked, "Who is this?" "This is Dr. Vada Estrada. I own this house. Now who the fuck are you?" The line went dead. Veda looked at the caller ID. The call had come from Roosevelt High School. She pulled up the school's website on her phone and searched the staff directory. It didn't take long to find her. Kaia Alfaro, 26 years old, English teacher, hired just this past September. Phoenix's girlfriend was a teacher at his school, a subordinate, someone he supervised as vice principal. The betrayal had layers. Veda sat down on the couch, the unfamiliar, cream-colored couch, and forced herself to think strategically. She was angry, devastated, furious beyond words. But rage without strategy was just noise. She needed a plan. Her phone buzzed. "Phoenix." Finally calling. She answered. "Where are you?" "V." Phoenix sounded panicked. Are you home?" "In Seattle." "Surprise," Veda said coldly. "Turns out when your mother dies, you want to come home to your husband. Imagine that." "Veda, listen." "No, you listen," Veda interrupted, her voice surging calm. "I'm sitting in my house. Except it's not my house anymore, is it? It's been completely redecorated. There are women's clothes in my closet that aren't mine. There are photos of you with a woman named Kaia all over the walls. And when I answered the home phone, she called asking what you wanted for dinner. So why don't you explain to me what the fuck is happening?" Phoenix was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was defensive. "You were gone, Veda. You were gone for 4 months. I was taking care of my dying mother, and we were growing apart anyway. You have to admit, our marriage has been basically over for years. We're just roommates who have sex occasionally. There's no passion, no connection. So you moved your girlfriend into our home." Veda's voice was rising despite her attempts at control. "While I was in Houston, you let her redecorate my house, sleep in my bed, live my life. I was going to tell you," Phoenix said. "I was planning to have the divorce conversation when you got back. But then your mom died and the timing was bad. The timing was bad." Veda repeated incredulously. "You couldn't find time to tell me you were leaving me while I was watching my mother die. So instead you just replaced me?" "It wasn't like that." "What was it like then, Phoenix? Explain it to me like I'm an idiot, since apparently I missed every sign that my husband was a lying piece of shit." "Don't do this, V. Don't make this ugly." "I'm not making it anything," Veda said, her voice dropping to that surgical calm again. "You already made it ugly. I'm just deciding how to respond." "I want a divorce," Phoenix said. "I'm sorry it happened like this, but I've met someone who makes me happy. Someone who isn't married to her career, who actually wants to be present in a relationship. Kaia and I are in love. We're building a life together. In my house," Veda said, "with my furniture and my money." "It's our house," Phoenix corrected. "Community property. And I've been making the mortgage payments while you were gone. With my money from our joint account. Like I said, community property. Look, Veda, let's be adults about this. We'll split everything 50-50. You can keep your retirement accounts. I'll keep mine. We'll sell the house and divide the proceeds. Clean, simple, no drama." "No," Veda said quietly. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm not agreeing to anything right now. You ambushed me. You've been living a double life for God knows how long. and now you want me to just accept your terms because it's convenient for you. Vada, get out of my house. Phoenix, you and Kaia, I want you both out by tonight. I'll be staying at a hotel, and when I come back tomorrow, I expect the locks changed and every trace of her gone. You can't do that. I live here. We'll see what a judge says about that. Get out. She hung up before he could respond. Vada sat in the silence of the transformed house, her hands shaking with adrenaline and rage. She pulled up her contacts and called the one person who would know what to do, her med school friend Blair McIntosh, who'd gone into law instead of medicine and was now a partner at a Seattle firm specializing in family law. Blair, Vada said when her friend answered, I need a lawyer, and I need one immediately. Blair McIntosh's office was in downtown Seattle's Columbia Center, with a view of Elliott Bay that normally would have calmed Vada. Today, nothing could calm her. Blair was a black woman in her late 30s, sharp as a scalpel and twice as effective. She'd known Vada since their undergraduate days at University of Washington, had been in Vada's wedding, had watched the marriage from the outside with occasional concern that she'd kept mostly to herself. Tell me everything, Blair said, pouring Vada a glass of water that sat untouched. Vada laid out the whole story. The sabbatical, her mother's death, coming home to find Phoenix had replaced her, the phone call with Kaia, Phoenix's demand for divorce. Blair's expression grew darker with each detail. When Vada finished, Blair leaned back in her leather chair and said, That motherfucker. Accurate, Vada agreed. Okay, here's what we're dealing with. Washington is a community property state, which means generally everything acquired during the marriage gets split 50-50. But there are exceptions, especially when one spouse has engaged in fraud or waste of community assets. If Phoenix has been using joint funds to support his affair, to redecorate the house for his girlfriend, to essentially create a new life while you were caring for your dying mother, that changes things. How? Vada asked. We can argue for disproportionate distribution. The judge has discretion to award you more than 50% if Phoenix has been dissipating marital assets or committing fraud. We'll need documentation, bank statements, credit card records, proof that he was using community funds for his affair. I can get that, Vada said. We have joint accounts. I have access to everything. Good. Second issue, the house. It's in both your names, correct? Yes. Then legally he can't be forced out immediately unless we get a court order. But given the circumstances, you returning from caring for your dying mother to find he's moved his girlfriend in, I think we can get an emergency hearing for exclusive use of the marital residence, especially if his girlfriend is still there. She might be, Vada said. I called her at work and told her who I was. She hung up. I don't know if she went to the house or not. Perfect. Let's go there now. If she's there, we'll document it, and that will strengthen our case for immediate exclusive possession. They drove to Queen and together, Blair's legal mind already strategizing. When they pulled up to the house, there were two cars in the driveway, Phoenix's Toyota and a Honda Civic Vada didn't recognize. That's probably hers, Blair said. Let me do the talking. They walked up to the front door. Vada used her key. Inside, they found Phoenix and Kaia sitting on the cream-colored couch, clearly in the middle of a tense conversation. Kaia was younger than she'd looked in the photos, maybe 25 or 26, with delicate features and the kind of youth that made Vada feel ancient at 37. She looked terrified. Phoenix stood up. Vada, you can't just barge in here with your lawyer. I absolutely can, Blair interrupted. This is Dr. Estrada's home. She's on the deed. She has every right to be here. You, on the other hand, and your companion here, are creating a hostile living situation for my client who just returned from burying her mother. Kaia lives here, Phoenix said defensively. No, she doesn't, Blair said calmly. This is marital property. Dr. Estrada never consented to this woman living here. In fact, she had no knowledge of this woman's existence until today. So Ms. Alfaro is effectively trespassing. Kaia looked like she might cry. Phoenix said they were separated. He said Vada knew about us. He said she was staying in Texas permanently and we were getting divorced. He lied to you, Vada said, finding her voice. I was taking care of my dying mother. Phoenix and I never discussed separation. We never discussed divorce. He just replaced me while I was gone. Kaia turned to Phoenix, betrayal dawning on her face. You said, you told me. It's complicated, Phoenix said. It's really not, Blair interjected. Mr. Aguirre engaged in an extramarital affair, moved his girlfriend into the marital home without his wife's knowledge or consent, and is now trying to make it seem like this was all somehow acceptable. Ms. Alfaro, I strongly suggest you gather your belongings and leave immediately. Otherwise, I'll be forced to pursue trespassing charges. Kaia, don't listen to her, Phoenix said. But Kaia was already moving, grabbing her purse, heading for the door. She stopped and turned to Phoenix. You said you were separated. You said she knew. You lied to me about everything, didn't you? Phoenix didn't answer. Kaia looked at Vada. I'm sorry. I didn't know. If I'd known you were still together, I never would have. I'm so sorry. She left, practically running to her Honda, and drove away. Now it was just Vada, Blair, and Phoenix in the house that felt like a stage set for someone else's life. You need to leave too, Blair told Phoenix. I'll be filing an emergency motion tomorrow for exclusive use of the residence. Given the circumstances, Dr. Estrada's mother just died. She returned to find you'd moved another woman in, and you've created a hostile living situation. I'm confident the judge will grant it. I'm not leaving my home, Phoenix said stubbornly. Then we'll make this very public, Blair said. I'll file a complaint with Roosevelt High School's administration about your inappropriate relationship with a subordinate employee. I'll subpoena all your communications. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did while your wife was caring for her dying mother. Is that really how you want this to go? Phoenix's face went pale. You're bluffing. Try me, Blair said. There was a long silence. Finally, Phoenix grabbed his jacket and his keys. Fine. I'll stay with a friend tonight. But this isn't over, Vada. You can't just destroy my life because you're hurt. I'm not destroying your life, Vada said quietly. You already did that yourself. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. Phoenix left, slamming the door behind him. Vada and Blair stood in the transformed house, surrounded by evidence of betrayal. What now? Vada asked. Now, Blair said, we build our case. We gather every piece of evidence showing what Phoenix did, and we make him regret ever underestimating you. Most people would be devastated right now. But Dr. Vada Estrada isn't most people. If you want to see what happens when a surgeon applies her skill set to dismantling a cheater's life, you need to stay subscribed. Drop a comment below telling us what you think Phoenix deserves, because what's coming next is going to be legendary. Over the next 72 hours, Vada and Blair built a case that was airtight. Vada had access to all their joint accounts. She'd always been the one managing their finances, actually. Phoenix had never been interested in money management, happy to let Vada handle it while he focused on his school administration work. That turned out to be his biggest mistake. The financial records told a damning story. Starting in March 2024, 1 month after Vada left for Houston, Phoenix had started spending massive amounts from their joint accounts. For $1,800 at West Elm for new furniture, $2,300 at Pottery Barn for home decor, $1,900 at Nordstrom for clothes that weren't his or Vada's size, $890 at a jewelry store in Bellevue for a necklace, $1,200 at a high-end restaurant for a Valentine's Day dinner Vada had definitely not attended. Over 4 months, Phoenix had spent $28,000 of their joint money redecorating the house and treating his girlfriend to a lifestyle they couldn't actually afford. Blair assembled it all into a comprehensive document showing systematic dissipation of marital assets. But there was more. Vada called Seattle Presbyterian and asked to review her leave paperwork. She was still technically employed. Her sabbatical was unpaid, but her benefits continued. When she looked at the insurance records, she found something interesting. Phoenix had filed an insurance claim in April for couples counseling, except they'd never gone to couples counseling. When Blair investigated further, they discovered Phoenix had been attending therapy sessions with Kaia, billing it to Vada's insurance as marital counseling. It was insurance fraud, plain and simple. This just keeps getting better, Blair said grimly. Or worse, depending on your perspective. He's not just a cheater, he's a criminal. The emergency hearing for exclusive use of the residence was scheduled for Monday, June 24th. Phoenix showed up with a lawyer, a man named Kenji Jacobson, who looked overwhelmed by the evidence Blair presented. The judge, an older woman named Royal Patrick, reviewed the documents with increasing disapproval. Mr. Aguirre, Judge Patrick said, am I understanding correctly that while your wife was in Houston caring for her terminally ill mother, you moved your girlfriend into the marital residence, spent $28,000 of community funds redecorating for said girlfriend, and told multiple people that your wife had decided to stay in Texas permanently? Your Honor, the marriage was already troubled, Kenji began. I didn't ask if the marriage was troubled, Judge Patrick interrupted. I asked if those facts are accurate. Yes, Your Honor, Kenji admitted reluctantly. And Dr. Estrada had no knowledge of any of this. She was aware we were having difficulties. Was she aware you'd moved another woman into her home? Yes or no? No, Your Honor. Judge Patrick looked at Phoenix with the kind of disdain usually reserved for repeat offenders. Mr. Aguirre, what you've done here is not just morally reprehensible. It constitutes waste of community assets and potentially fraud. I'm granting Dr. Estrada exclusive use of the marital residence effective immediately. You have 48 hours to remove your personal belongings. Do not remove anything else. Dr. Estrada will provide an inventory, and if anything is missing, you'll be held in contempt. Your Honor, Kenji tried. I'm not finished. I'm also ordering a full forensic accounting of all community assets. If this pattern of dissipation continues, I will consider it when determining property division. Mr. Aguirre, you're lucky I'm not referring this to the prosecutor's office for the insurance fraud, but if I see one more instance of impropriety, that will change. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Your Honor, Phoenix said quietly, looking defeated. Good. We'll reconvene in 60 days for a full hearing on property division. Dismissed. Outside the courtroom, Phoenix approached Vada. Are you happy now? You're destroying my life. No, Vada said calmly. I'm protecting my assets from someone who was systematically stealing from me. There's a difference. Kaia broke up with me, Phoenix said. She wants nothing to do with me after finding out I lied to her. I'm probably going to lose my job when the school district finds out about our relationship. I've got nowhere to live. All because you can't accept that our marriage was over. Our marriage was over the moment you moved another woman into our home, Vada said. You made that choice, Phoenix. Not me. I was in Houston holding my mother's hand while she died, and you were here playing house with a woman young enough to be your daughter. So no, I don't feel sorry for you. At all. She walked away, leaving Phoenix standing in the courthouse hallway looking lost. But Vada wasn't done. Not even close. She'd been thinking like a surgeon, identifying the problem, planning the procedure, and now executing with precision. Phoenix had claimed the school district was doing layoffs, that he was fighting to keep his job. But that was a lie. Vada called the district's human resources department and discovered there were no layoffs planned. Phoenix had lied to her about that too. But what he hadn't lied about was the potential consequences of his relationship with Kaia. Washington State has strict ethics policies for school administrators. Romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates create conflicts of interest and potential hostile work environments. As vice principal, Phoenix was directly in Kaia's chain of command. The relationship violated district policy. Vada sent an anonymous tip to the district's ethics hotline, including documentation that Phoenix and Kaia had been in a relationship while he supervised her, that he'd been filing insurance claims for couples counseling with a subordinate employee, and that he'd used school resources, his office, school time, to conduct the affair. The district launched an investigation immediately. Within 2 weeks, Phoenix was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. But Vada still wasn't done. She hired a private investigator, a woman named Nadia Costa who specialized in documenting infidelity and financial misconduct. Nadia's job was to build a comprehensive timeline of Phoenix's affair, showing exactly when it started, how long it had been going on, and how much community money had been spent on it. What Nadia discovered was worse than Vada had imagined. The affair had started in October 2023, 8 months before Vada left for Houston. Phoenix and Kaia had been seeing each other for months before Adeline even got sick. The sabbatical had just been convenient timing for Phoenix to move his girlfriend in openly. Nadia found hotel records showing Phoenix and Kaia had spent weekends together while Vada was still living at home, claiming he was at education conferences. She found restaurant receipts, gift purchases, love notes, and email accounts Phoenix had thought were private. The affair had been going on for 9 months, nearly 3/4 of a year. All while Phoenix came home to Vada every night, kissed her, told her he loved her, made plans for their future. When Blair presented all of this to Phoenix's attorney, Kenji's face went gray. This is comprehensive, Kenji admitted. My client's position is untenable. Then let's talk settlement, Blair said. Here's what Dr. Estrada wants. Vada's demands were strategic and punishing. She keeps the house entirely. No splitting the proceeds. Phoenix signs over his interest. Phoenix reimburses her $28,000 for the community funds he dissipated. She keeps all retirement accounts and investments. Phoenix takes responsibility for all community debts. He agrees never to contact her again except through attorneys. If he violates any term of the settlement, he owes an additional $50,000 in liquidated damages. That's unconscionable, Kenji said. He'll have nothing. He should have thought of that before he stole from his wife while she buried her mother, Blair said coldly. This is my client being generous. The alternative is we go to trial, and I make sure every detail of his affair becomes public record. The school district will fire him. His reputation will be destroyed. He'll be unhireable in education. Is that what he wants? Kenji consulted with Phoenix for 20 minutes. When he came back, he looked defeated. My client agrees to the terms. The divorce was finalized in September 2024, just 3 months after Vada had come home to find her life erased. Phoenix signed over the house, reimbursed the money, and essentially walked away from 8 years of marriage with nothing but his personal belongings and his teaching credentials, which were now under review by the state licensing board. The school district's investigation concluded in October. Phoenix was fired for ethics violations. His relationship with Kaia, conducted while he supervised her, combined with his use of school resources to facilitate the affair, constituted gross misconduct. He'd lost his marriage, his home, his career, and his reputation in less than 4 months. Vada heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to Spokane, was substitute teaching, living in a small apartment, trying to rebuild his life from nothing. She felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, nothing. He'd made his choices. She'd simply ensured those choices had appropriate consequences. This is where most revenge stories end, with the cheater punished and the victim victorious. But Dr. Vada Estrada's story is about something deeper than revenge. It's about what comes after. Stay subscribed, because the final chapter reveals what healing actually looks like when you've been betrayed at your lowest moment. 6 months after the divorce, Vada was finally starting to feel like herself again. She'd returned to Seattle Presbyterian in October, welcomed back by colleagues who'd heard vague details about her divorce but respected her privacy enough not to pry. She threw herself into work, complex surgeries, research, teaching residents. The precision of cardiac surgery was soothing. In the operating room, she had control. Variables could be managed. Outcomes could be predicted. She'd redecorated the house. Again, this time in her own style, minimalist, modern, clean lines. She'd erased every trace of Phoenix, and before that, every trace of the life he'd tried to build with Kaia. The house was finally, authentically hers. She was in therapy twice a week with a psychologist named Derek Howell, working through the trauma of her mother's death compounded by her husband's betrayal. Dr. Howell helped her understand that grief and rage could coexist, that she didn't have to choose between mourning her mother and being angry at Phoenix. You're allowed to feel multiple things simultaneously, Dr. Howell said during one session. That's not weakness. That's being human. It was permission Vada hadn't known she needed. One evening in December, Vada was at a medical fundraiser at the Seattle Art Museum, the same kind of event where she'd met Phoenix 10 years ago. She was talking to a colleague about a challenging case when someone approached with drinks. "You look like you could use this," a man said, handing her a glass of wine. Vada looked up. He was attractive, maybe mid-40s, black, with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Thank you," she said, "but I didn't order this." "I know. I'm Marlon Fitzpatrick, trauma surgeon at Harborview. I've seen you present at conferences. Your work on minimally invasive valve replacement is revolutionary." They talked for an hour. Marlon was divorced, had 2 teenage kids, and understood the demands of surgical life in ways Phoenix never had. He didn't ask why Vada was at the fundraiser alone, didn't pry into her personal life, just treated her like a colleague he respected and enjoyed talking to. "Would you maybe want to get coffee sometime?" Marlon asked as the event was winding down. "As friends, colleague to colleague. No pressure." Vada surprised herself by saying yes. Their first coffee turned into dinner a week later. Dinner turned into regular dates. By February, they were in a relationship, cautious, careful, both of them carrying scars from previous marriages, but willing to try. I need you to know something, Vada told him 3 months into dating. I got divorced this year. It was complicated. My ex had an affair while I was caring for my dying mother. I came home to find he'd moved his girlfriend into our house. I'm still processing that. I'm probably going to be processing it for a long time. Marlon listened without judgment. That's awful. I'm sorry you went through that. I'm telling you because I need you to understand. I have trust issues now. I'm going to need transparency. I'm going to need reassurance. I'm going to be hyper-vigilant about things that might not bother other people. If you can't handle that, I understand. But I need to be honest about where I am. I appreciate that, Marlon said. And I want you to know, I'm an open book. Ask me anything. Check my phone whenever you want. Meet my kids. Talk to my ex-wife. I have nothing to hide, and I understand why you'd need those reassurances. It was the healthiest relationship conversation Vada had ever had. By June 2025, exactly 1 year after she'd come home to find her life erased, Vada was in a completely different place. She'd been promoted to surgical director at Seattle Presbyterian. Her research on valve replacement had been published in a major journal. She was dating someone who respected her, who understood her career demands, who never made her feel like she had to choose between her professional life and her personal life. She'd survived losing her mother and losing her marriage in the same month. She'd come out the other side not just intact, but stronger. One afternoon, she ran into Kaia Alfaro at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill. Pure coincidence, wrong place, wrong time, or maybe the universe forcing a conversation that needed to happen. Kaia looked different, more mature, somehow. She was wearing professional clothes, carried a laptop bag, looked like she'd grown up in the past year. Their eyes met. Kaia looked like she wanted to run, but instead, she walked over. Dr. Estrada, Kaia said quietly, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Vada gestured to the empty chair at her table. "Sure." Kaia sat down, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup nervously. "I want to apologize. I know it's way too late, and I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were still together. Phoenix told me you were separated, that you'd decided to stay in Texas, that the marriage was over. I never would have dated him if I'd known the truth." "I believe you," Vada said, and she meant it. "Phoenix lied to both of us." "I lost my job," Kaia said. "The school district fired me too. Not for the relationship itself, but because I didn't report it, and apparently there's a policy about disclosure. My teaching license was suspended for a year. I couldn't get another teaching job in Washington." "What are you doing now?" Vada asked. "I moved back to Oregon, where I'm from. I'm working on my master's degree in education policy. I'm trying to make something meaningful out of what happened. I want to work on ethics reform in school systems, make sure other young teachers don't end up in situations like I did." "That's admirable," Vada said. "I think about what I did a lot," Kaia continued. "About how I was living in your house, sleeping in your bed, wearing clothes Phoenix bought with your money. I didn't know where it all came from at the time. He told me he'd been saving, that the redecorating was his way of starting fresh. But I was young and stupid, and I believed him because I wanted to. I'm sorry for my part in it. You didn't deserve what happened to you." Vada looked at this young woman who'd been used just as much as she had, just in different ways. "Phoenix is a skilled liar. He convinced both of us of different versions of reality. You were his employee, 26 years old, probably flattered that the vice principal paid attention to you. He had all the power in that dynamic. I'm not saying you don't bear any responsibility, but he manipulated you too. Thank you for saying that," Kaia said, her eyes filling with tears. "Most people just see me as the homewrecker who destroyed your marriage." "You didn't destroy my marriage," Vada said firmly. "Phoenix did that all by himself. You were just collateral damage in his midlife crisis." They talked for another 20 minutes. Kaia told her about the therapy she'd been in, about the work she was doing to understand how she'd ended up in that situation, about her new career goals. Vada found herself hoping this young woman would find her way. When they parted, Kaia said, "I hope you found happiness. You deserve it." "I'm getting there," Vada said. "I hope you do too." 2 years after her mother's death, Vada scattered Adeline's ashes at Alki Beach in West Seattle, where her mother had always loved watching the sunset when she'd visited. Marlon came with her, stood beside her while she said goodbye properly, held her hand while she cried for everything she'd lost and everything she'd survived. "She would be proud of you," Marlon said, "for how you handled everything. I don't know about that, Vada said. I was pretty ruthless with Phoenix. You were strategic, Marlon corrected. You protected yourself from someone who was systematically stealing from you and lying to everyone about it. That's not ruthless. That's smart. My mother always told me to be smart, Vada said, smiling through tears. She said being smart was better than being nice. Nice people get taken advantage of. Smart people survive. Your mother was wise. 3 years after the divorce, Vada received an email from Phoenix. It came through LinkedIn. She'd blocked him everywhere else. The message was surprisingly self-aware. Vada, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand if you delete this without reading. But I wanted to reach out because I've been in therapy for 2 years now, and my therapist suggested I write to you as part of my accountability process. What I did to you was unforgivable. I moved my girlfriend into our home while you were burying your mother. I spent our money on another woman. I lied to you, to Kaia, to everyone. I told myself at the time that our marriage was already over, that I wasn't doing anything that wrong because we'd grown apart. But that was a lie I told myself to avoid facing my own cowardice. The truth is, I was scared. You were so successful, so competent, so focused on your career. I felt diminished by comparison. When Kaia paid attention to me, made me feel important and valued, I liked it. I chose my ego over my integrity. Losing everything, my marriage, my home, my career, forced me to confront who I'd become. I don't like that person. I'm trying to become someone better, but I know I can't undo the damage I caused. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you were right to hold me accountable. Without consequences, I would have just continued the pattern with someone else. I hope you found happiness. I hope you found someone who appreciates everything about you that I took for granted. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. I'm sorry. For all of it. Phoenix. Vada read the email twice, then closed her laptop without responding. She didn't need Phoenix's apology, didn't need his acknowledgement or his regret. Those things were for him, part of his healing process. She'd already healed without them. That evening, Marlon made dinner at her house. Their house now. Really, since he'd been spending most nights there. His kids were visiting their mother in Portland for the weekend, so it was just the two of them. You're quiet, Marlon observed over wine. Everything okay? Phoenix emailed me, Vada said, apologizing for what he did. How do you feel about that? Vada thought about it. Indifferent. A few years ago, I would have wanted to respond, to make sure he knew how much he'd hurt me. But now, I just don't care. He's not part of my life anymore. His apology doesn't change anything. That's growth, Marlon said. Moving from anger to indifference. That's real healing. I think so too, Vada said. She looked around her home, the home she'd fought to keep, that she'd reclaimed from Phoenix's betrayal, that she'd transformed into something authentically hers. Marlon was cooking in her kitchen. His laughter filled her spaces. They were building something together, carefully and honestly, with full knowledge of each other's past wounds. Phoenix had tried to erase her while she was at her lowest. He'd bet that she'd be too devastated, too overwhelmed by grief, too broken to fight back. He'd been wrong. Dr. Vada Estrada had been forged in operating rooms where life and death hung on split-second decisions. She knew how to stay calm in crisis. She knew how to identify the problem, plan the procedure, and execute with precision. She'd applied those skills to her own life, cutting away the diseased tissue of Phoenix's betrayal and rebuilding something healthy. Not revenge. Surgery. And unlike Phoenix, she'd left no collateral damage in her wake. She'd been strategic, measured, and proportional. She'd demanded accountability without becoming cruel. That was the difference between them. Phoenix had been willing to destroy to get what he wanted. Vada had only destroyed what was already dead, a marriage Phoenix had killed months before she even knew it was dying. 5 years after her mother's death, Vada and Marlon got married in a small ceremony on San Juan Island, where she and Phoenix had gotten married a lifetime ago. She wasn't trying to recreate anything or erase the past. She just loved the islands and wanted to start this new chapter somewhere beautiful. Her closest friends and colleagues attended. Marlon's kids were there, teenagers now who'd slowly come to accept Vada as part of their father's life. It was small, intimate, honest, everything her first wedding had been, but built on a foundation of transparency rather than assumption. During the ceremony, as they exchanged vows, Vada found herself thinking about her mother. Adeline had never met Marlon, had died before Vada's whole life had fallen apart and been rebuilt. But Vada thought her mother would have approved of how she'd handled everything. The strategic thinking, the refusal to be a victim, the rebuilding with intention. "You look happy," Marlon said after the ceremony, as they walked along the beach in their wedding clothes. "I am," Vada said, and realized it was true. Completely, genuinely true. She'd survived her mother's death. She'd survived her husband's betrayal. She'd survived discovering her entire life had been erased while she was at her most vulnerable. And she'd come out the other side not just intact, but thriving. That was the real victory. Not punishing Phoenix, though that had been necessary. Not getting the house or the assets, though those had been deserved. The real victory was refusing to let betrayal break her. The real victory was healing, rebuilding, and opening herself to love again even after having every reason to close herself off forever. The real victory was standing on this beach, married to someone who valued her exactly as she was, knowing that she'd survived the worst and built something beautiful from the ruins. Phoenix had tried to erase her. Instead, she'd erased him from her life and built something so much better than what she'd lost. That was justice. That was healing. That was what it meant to survive. And Dr. Vada Estrada, who operated on human hearts for a living, had learned how to repair her own.